Alrighty guys, so today we're going to be doing a review on the Lifan Xpect. I have two of these bikes. This is my first one. I put about a little over 2,100 miles on it. Hoping this audio sounds good. I'm still trying to figure out how to record my voice while riding. It's been harder than I thought. So hopefully this turns out okay and I don't just spend about 40 minutes of my time talking for no reason. So the first thing I wanted to start off with, I was going to get the bad stuff out of the way. This bike, it's gone up since I bought mine. I got mine for like a little under 1,500 bucks. It was like $1,490, so $1,500. And then shipping, registration, all of that out the door. I was about $2,000 in. I think like nowadays they're going for like a little under 1,700. So they're not as cheap as they used to be. So let's start with the bad things about the bike. So some of the issues with it, because it's so cheap, is some of the parts aren't great on it. The biggest one, in my opinion, is the chain. The chain just sucks. The stock chain is not great. The good thing is it's pretty cheap to replace. I think I paid like $35 for a new chain, which, isn't bad at all. So, it's really easy to do. And the nice thing about the parts being kind of bad on this bike is that if you've never owned a bike before, it's kind of a good way to learn how to do everything. If you get a new, more expensive bike, you won't learn how to change, your chain or swap out your rear shock or your front forks or whatever. So it's kind of a nice excuse to kind of learn how to do those things. So that can kind of be seen as a positive, or you at least can find like a good aspect about it. But yeah, so like one of the big issues is a chain on this. You'll be doing chain adjustments all the time. It's kind of annoying. So your best bet's just to get a new one. The other issue that I have with this bike is honestly, it really needs a 6th gear. I don't know if it has power for a 6th gear, but man, it really needs one. I have a 17-tooth sprocket on this one, which I just kind of did that temporarily. This bike's actually going to go back to a 15 because I'm building this strictly for off-road, for the most part. It'll still be able to do like street, but I want to mainly like orient it towards like light trail riding and stuff. And then I'm putting the 17-tooth on my other one that I'm going to build for the street. My other issue with this bike is the transmission. You probably noticed I have not been shifting with my clutch. It seems to like it better, especially going from first to second. I actually literally cannot get this thing to go to 2nd gear like 7 times out of 10 if I'm using the clutch. So I pretty much strictly just clutchless shift on this thing. It shifts way smoother. Once you figure it out, it just kind of flows through the gears. It accelerates way smoother. But I honestly just really do not like the transmission on this bike. The gear shifts are not satisfying. Between like 2nd and 3rd, it'll pop out of 3rd into like a false neutral and then back into 3rd sometimes. If you it's just strange. And mine's always done that. And that could be a quality control issue. That could be only some bikes have it. But it seems the 1st to 2nd issue, at least on both of the Xpecs that I have, they both do that. But I've never seen anybody else have that issue, so maybe I got unlucky. I don't know. I've never had that happen on any other bike I've rode. Literally just these. It's not really a big deal. Like when I'm trail riding on this one, it's not really a problem. Like I'm not trying to climb up a hill in 1st and then pop into 2nd and it won't go. My other complaint with this bike is the suspension. Now, while it does do fine, like on the street, if you just are riding like this, pretty much here, to, like how I'm riding right now, to work and back, the stock suspension isn't really going to bother you, I think. I honestly just started modifying my suspension like a couple weeks ago because I've been recently trail riding more, and I kind of just surprisingly I wanted it a little bit stiffer. There was like a lot of play in the rear shock. The rear shock is not great for trail riding. I fit a different rear shock on this. Cost me $60, so it's a cheap fix. Like a lot of the complaints I have with this bike, they're relatively a cheap fix. The front forks are like the size of number 2 pencils, which is a little concerning on this bike. That's one thing I really wish they didn't cheap out on, especially considering like the Hawks, the Lifan Xpect, the Tao TBR7. They all now have that those like upside down forks. I feel like this bike should have had those. They just seem more sturdy. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're equally as sturdy. I don't know. The thing is I think a fork upgrade on this is possible. I've been doing a lot of research. I think I found a set that'll fit this, so I'm gonna give it a shot. So that's something I'll be figuring out later on. Okay, so just filled up, and this is another reason why I like this bike. $5.20, and I've been riding this to work for, I don't know, a good while. I don't fill this thing up often. And this thing's not stock either. I got an intake and exhaust on it. I messed with the fueling a little bit, which I'll get into on a later video. Tuning on these bikes is a little complicated. But that kind of brings me into my next thing I like about this bike, and that is the Bosch EFI system. So there's actually a little adjuster screw on the throttle body, which adjusts your idle. But what I've learned from some users on the Facebook group is that actually adjusts your fueling as well. To some degree, it bypasses the injector, so you can actually kind of adjust your fuel a little bit. Now, of course, I'm probably still running a little lean, but for the most part, when I adjusted that screw, it did feel quite a bit better, and it doesn't backfire anymore. But I haven't checked the AFRs, so I don't really know like how well it's running. I kind of just eyeballed it. Like I kind of just set the idle to 2,500 RPMs and kind of just went from there. So yeah, it's not great way to tune it, but it works. I mean, especially they probably added that for elevation. Probably just adjust for differences in elevation. But that is a nice part. The Bosch EFI on this bike is actually really solid. Another thing I like about this bike is honestly just the comfort. I've always found this thing to be pretty comfortable. After about an hour or two, the seat does kind of hurt your ass a little bit, but you can get a cheap cushion off of Amazon, and then it's completely comfortable. But I think the seating position's pretty good. Sit a little close to the handlebars, I think. Even my buddy who never rides bikes like this got on my other one, and he was even saying it's like you sit just a little too close to the handlebars. He's a little taller than me. I'm only 5'7", and I got short arms and legs. Most of my height's in my torso, so I'm built kind of weird, but so for me it fits perfect. If you're like real tall, I could see this bike being pretty awkward. So we'll also talk about reliability. So you know, a lot of people here like made in China. I'm gonna go up this way. A lot of people here made in China, and I don't know, their first thing is like, oh, things in China are junk, you know, made in China are junk. Which, you know, in the past I can kind of see where that mindset has came from, but you know, the way you gotta look at it is that like their whole country functions off stuff made in their country. So I don't know, like you think a whole country is just gonna function off products that are only garbage? Like their whole society has to run, you know, people have to get to work, like people have to use products, and like most products are made in China, and like people are typing on Reddit like Chinese bikes are crap, things in China are made like crap, you know, and they're texting on their iPhone that was made in China. So like I don't know, I really think the whole concept of things made in China are junk is kind of dated. Of course, there are plenty of things that are made in China that are junk. You know, you can buy all kinds of things off Amazon and shit that are just not great. But in terms of their bikes, I mean, honestly, they're pretty solid. I actually own a CF Moto. It's been a great bike so far. I'm actually going to get another one here in a couple months, maybe even sooner than that. Yeah, don't buy into the junk that, you know, stuff made in China is, you know, terrible and all of that. Because really, they're starting to figure out motorcycles. Yeah, I mean, this isn't going to be like no Kawasaki or any, you know, it's not going to be like a Honda or anything. But like at how different the price is, like, of course it's not. I mean, it'd be crazy to think it would be. You know, ultimately, you want to have a bike that's good for the price, not a bike that you're going to pay a third of the price of its competitors and get the same thing, because that's just an unrealistic expectation. So they're honestly, I think they're solid bikes. I mean, Lifan is a pretty reputable company. They make cars in China. You know, they're not just like some small company that's like slapping together bikes. I mean, they have been making they've been making stuff for quite a while. As far as Chinese manufacturers, I would say they're pretty reputable. So yeah, I mean, I think these things are just solid bikes. You know, like a lot of small issues that you have, like I said, you can change them out. I mean, you know, the mirrors suck, so I got different mirrors. I needed more wind protection, so I put a MT-07 windshield on it. I wanted the RPMs to be lower, so I put a different sprocket on it. I feel like if you're looking for a beginner bike, you just can't beat these. Like something like in this range, you know, not the Lifan Xpect specifically, but you know, like I said, the Tao TBR7, the X Pro Hawk, the Lifan KPX, you know, those are all relatively in the same range. The X Pro Titan, which is closer to the Lifan KPX because it's the 6-speed 250 as well. But I mean, look at this. It's doing, you know, about 57 miles per hour. Speedometer, from what I've noticed, is off about 3 miles per hour. And I got one hand on it, which is not a good idea. I should need to have two, but but it rides smooth. 65. Try to tuck down a little bit, see if we can get some more. It's a little windy. I've gotten this thing on a straightaway with pretty low wind, like mid-70s, and so that's pretty much it. Of course, if you have any questions, have any concerns about this bike, you know, you just want to know before you get it, or if this isn't really what you're looking for but you need recommendations, just let me know. I'll be happy to help. Other than that, thanks for watching.